It's interesting in this project when I hit a game that I haven't played in over 30 years, but I remember really liking it. Well, really liking it despite its problems that I could spot even at the time. It was interesting to revive my memories of it and see if it matches what I recall. Cadash started out as an arcade game, one of Taito's more unusual arcade games. It was an attempt to make a side-scrolling, cooperative RPG that worked in arcades. We're talking equipment upgrades, heading back to town to heal, grinding to level up, the whole shebang. Since it was an arcade game and you needed to turn people over every 2.5 minutes, Taito put a time limit on the game, one that you could replenish by finding certain items. That time limit was the first thing to go for the PC Engine version, and that makes the game a lot easier. Although, not as easy as you might hope. Before I get too deep into things, I need to point out that the US version of Cadash, the one I played, was published by Working Designs. The only difference that I know of between the Japanese version and the US version of Cadash is the language that the conversations are in. And since those are such a tiny portion of this game, I stuck with the original Japanese version for this video. Just be aware that there's a perfectly good English version of Cadash out there if you want to play this one. The plot of the game is that the demon Barlog, not Balrog, Barlog, that servant of Morgoth has abducted the princess. 4 heroes from across the country come forward to rescue her. So first things first, you've got to pick your hero. If you're playing 2 players, then each player has to choose a different hero. I'm by myself, so I've got my pick. One of them is significantly easier to complete the game with, and one of them is extremely difficult to complete the game with. See if you can guess which one's which before I reveal it. Going from left to right, we're starting with the warrior. He's equipped with a sword, shield, and heavy armor. The warrior gets no magic and has no projectile attacks until you buy a special weapon very late in the game. Next up is the wizard. His primary weapon is a staff, and he equips robes as armor. The wizard has access to offensive spells, mostly projectile attacks, but there's some screen clearing effects as well. The wizard is the character that levels up the quickest. Next up is the woman, priest. Her primary weapon is a flail that has a very long reach, and she wears some heavier armor, though not as heavy as the warrior. She also has the ability to cast spells that can heal, remove status effects, or make her invulnerable. Finally, there's the ninja. His weapon is a shuriken, which makes it the only default ranged weapon, and it also has the advantage that as you acquire more of them, he'll start throwing a spread shot. The ninja has light armor and no magic, but as he levels up, he can start moving faster than the other characters. As for the controls, button 2 is used to attack and button 1 is used for jumping. Casting spells is performed by pressing and holding button 2, and after a moment an icon will appear above your character's head indicating what spell they'll cast. Keep holding it down to rotate through the spell list. Naturally, spells cost MP to cast. One important detail to be aware of in Cadash is that you can attack in 8 directions. You'll have to be jumping to attack diagonally downward, and for the wizard and warrior, all down attacks are a down thrust. You will need to use those diagonal attacks to be effective against some enemies. Okay, now that you know how to play, which character do you think is the most effective? And yes, obviously it's the priest. Between the long reach and the spells that ensure survival, she is the easiest character to get over the massive hump that is the first area of the game. That first area is extra nasty. You begin the game by getting your quest from the king. So far, so good. There are 2 chests in the throne room, one with a healing item, one with a status recovery item. Healing items are used automatically when you run out of health, and they restore 10 HP. Now you're looking at the health bar for a level 1 character, and it's immediately obvious that 10 HP is nothing. It's maybe 2 hits against a boss. So you'll just have to acquire other healing. Well, until you clear the first area, there is no other healing. There's no inn to rest at, no shop to purchase things from, and leveling up doesn't restore health or magic. Every resource that you use between the point that you leave the king and when you defeat the giant slime boss at the end of the first dungeon is effectively a permanent loss. Now once you reach the second town, then there are shops where you can purchase more healing items and an inn where you can sleep to recover health. And so you'll be able to grind a bit and come back here to restore yourself. But you have to beat the first dungeon with essentially nothing. The priest is the one character who can heal, so her health bar winds up being effectively twice as long as everyone else's. And that's assuming you don't grind a couple levels up and use her protection spell, which absorbs even more damage than your health bar. The character that's the hardest to get through that first dungeon is the wizard, between the smallest health bar, the weakest physical attack, and extremely limited magic. Every fireball that you cast is one that you don't have to use on the boss, and the Blade Storm spell isn't much better. I have beaten the game with all 4 characters. I don't recommend doing that. The only way the wizard is viable is if you're playing a cooperative game, and someone is carrying you through the early difficult stages. Every enemy that you defeat drops a money bag, and you're going to wind up with way more cash than you know what to do with, especially if you do any kind of grinding. There is a maximum number of items that you can carry, and there's no way to check your inventory or see how much gold you have on you. You just have to pop into a shop and try to buy something to see what happens. Cadash winds up being a short game, which isn't that much of a shock considering it was originally in arcades. There are 5 regions that you have to pass through before you reach the end. To make up for that, there is no continue in this game. Well, they added one in the US version as a cheat code. However, the PC Engine version that I was playing, it's back to the start if you get a game over. Cadash seems to be a divisive game among Japanese PC Engine fans. Some people like the setting and the RPG as an action platformer. Others are turned off by the style, or thought that the arcade version was much better. I can't recall the last time I've seen a game with as many contentious opinions among Japanese players. My take on revisiting Cadash after so long is, it matched my memories. I remembered the priest being overwhelmingly powerful, and she was. I remember the first area being brutally difficult to get through and then the game becoming considerably easy afterward, and that was the case. And I remembered enjoying it quite a bit, and I still do. I'll be the first to admit it's a sloppy game, and not just because of the bugs I encountered. Look at that, the boss is making a run for it. I just also think it's an interesting title that doesn't overstay its welcome. You can play an entire RPG in just half an hour in Cadash. And I had a good time.